Rangers fans, welcome to Liberty Blue, the essential New York Rangers podcast. I'm Andrew Chelney. That's Nick Zararis. And Nick, we have some auxiliary news and notes to get to here. Number one, Brett Berard played with a torn labrum throughout his rookie season, which surely is going to go well for his long-term implications, health-wise. And number two, Connor Sherry, Mike Sullivan's favorite player, is going to get a PTO with the Rangers.
So the Berard stuff, again, we've talked about this for much of the last 3 years. The Rangers are very weird when it comes to managing people who are injured. Like, this is a guy who wasn't in the lineup that consistently, who didn't have a featured or prominent role. The team wasn't playing particularly well. They envision him at least as possibly a contributor into the future. Why was this guy playing? If he wasn't in the lineup consistently and was having to endure treatment to be able to play sparingly when he did, why was he playing? There again, this is just another one of those cases where the hockey people will say, well, you can't tell a player he doesn't want to play. I would contend it is your responsibility to tell a guy, hey, we're not winning games with you anyway. You might as well get this taken care of now. So that way, next year, you're as good to go as you can be. The longer you wait to get treatment, full-time treatment surgery, the longer it takes you to recover. And the further removed you are from the surgery, the more likely you are to return to full strength. And again, it just speaks to a weird organizational philosophy. And like, I get it on some degree. You know, it's a guy who wants to stick around. It's a guy who feels he has to earn his spot in the lineup. So he's going to try and play through an injury, even if, you know, it makes him reduced in terms of his capabilities. As for Shiri, whatever, it's a PTO. I don't see a spot for him. That's really the biggest confusion here. Like, if he's the 13th forward, whatever, that's fine. But I don't really see a path to him getting in. I mean, we've been talking about this for weeks. Like, what are they going to do with Berard or Othman, let alone Connor Sherry? There aren't enough spots for all these guys to get in. So a veteran 13th forward is fine. But other than that, I don't really see where he gets in.
I think for Berard, zero of the blame is on Brett Berard. No. Obviously, like he was fighting tooth and nail to play every game, and you know, you could tear his leg off and he'd still want to play, right? Like, this is not on Brett Berard, and I commend him for wanting to play. This is on the organization for being like, hey, like, you are part of the long-term future here. We need you healthy, and you playing with a torn labrum is not going to make that, you know, a stronger case for you to be healthy down the road. They probably they really should have sat him down and be like, okay, look, we know you want to play. You are going to play next season. You got to heal this up. Yep. That would have been the smart thing to do. And maybe they had those conversations. Like, you know, I don't want to assume that they didn't, but he did play through it. So I would imagine those conversations didn't end up, you know, materializing in anything because he continued to be on the ice. I understand Berard wanted to play. And again, none of this, like, you know, especially as somebody in the rookie campaign, I understand maybe he, you know, didn't explain just how bad the injury was. I'm sure the Rangers knew about it. But for a team that wasn't making the playoffs anyway, for a team that, by all accounts, highly regards Brett Berard, why was he playing? If his labrum is torn, why is he playing in a lost season? For your one of your best rookies, who you want to play for the foreseeable future for a long time, maybe. Why is he playing? That doesn't make any sense to me. And for Connor Sherry, in terms of PTO options, I have no complaints. If Connor Sherry if he's content to be the 14th forward on this team and just kind of rotate in every, I don't know, week or so, like, or a couple of weeks when there's an injury, there's way worse options out there. Mike Sullivan likes him, clearly. I mean, he played a lot, and, you know, the guys know each other from Pittsburgh. And if he's cool with just kind of riding it out and being the extra forward that comes in every now and again, that's fine.
Yeah, that's really where the way you can't get PTOs, you can't get too worked up about. There are times where they're kind of dumb and they're very clearly favors for someone, but it can't possibly hurt to have an extra body in camp. If he plays well, great. If he plays, like, that's generally the way I try and look at PTOs, where if a guy plays well enough in preseason that it's noticeable and the team feels they deserve at least a roster spot, they've played their way into it. You know, it's not a guaranteed contract. We'll go from there. All right. We've got 20 questions. The New York Rangers are in the dead of summer. There is nothing going on. I know the A couple of them played in the charity game in Connecticut. I know Chris Kreider was there. I know there was a feature someone wrote about Rempe and that connection, but ultimately there's not a lot going on, and we generally break this out once a summer. Yeah. So question number 1 on this list, rank the following people: John Tortorella, Alain Vigneault, David Quinn, Gerard Gallant, Peter Laviolette.
I think David Quinn's at the bottom.
Agreed,
for sure.
Definitely.
I think is John Tortorella at the top? Like, I don't even, like, it's difficult because, like, Alain Vigneault really took this team to the Cup final, but also was the reason they lost to the Senators. So he's kind of a very left and right type of coach. Like, oh, his highs were high, but oh my God, his lows were low. As you know, as he's somewhere probably in a cottage still chewing his gum. Gerard Gallant probably above David Quinn, I would say. I think it would go Quinn, Gallant, AV, Laviolette, and then Tortorella. That would kind of have to be the 5. Like, even then, I don't know if Laviolette is that high, but you know, when everything goes as well as it did in season 1, off of, you know, yeah, it wasn't a great head coaching hire at the time. I think that's the 5. I'm open to suggestions to change it. It's not something that's set in stone, but that's kind of where my head's at right now.
Yeah, I think that's reasonable. I definitely have Quinn last. I think I would put Gallant above Quinn. And then I think the real question for me is the order of Tortorella and Vigneault. I think we look at Torts a little bit through a nostalgia lens. I think at Vigneault, we look too much at the negative as opposed to some of the positive. And
maybe
I'm inclined to rank them Quinn last, Gallant 4th, Tortorella 3rd, Vigneault 2nd, Laviolette 1st. I think I could make an argument for Vigneault being 1st. I know it got really bad there at the end, but they got to a Cup final. They won the President's Trophy. If they have better health in 2015, they have a reasonable chance of going to back-to-back Cup finals. So I think some permutation of Tortorella, Vigneault, Laviolette makes sense for the 1, 2, 3. And then I feel Quinn is a very solid last place, both between the results and just his general condescension as someone who didn't really accomplish a whole lot, but acted like he had done a lot. Just something about his demeanor really rubbed me the wrong way, that he came in like he was like he didn't win anything in college. Like, yeah, he was an assistant on a team that won something, but that's very different. Something about that drove me.
I totally agree. Like, I think the top 3 can be interchangeable. Like, I think I could be convinced for any one of those 3 to take that top spot. I'm not putting my house on, you know, one of them firmly being number 1 or number 2. But, you know, I think that the top 3 could be fluid depending on the angle that you choose to go at it with. But the bottom 2 are pretty firm.
I definitely agree with you there. All right, next up. Better season, Jágr's 05-06 or Panarin's 23-24?
Jágr's season, because he led the team in points and the second best player had like 40. Like, Jágr had like 120 points or whatever ridiculous number it was, and then the next guy had like 55, genuinely. Like, it wasn't even close. Like, Panarin had an amazing season, and I'm not here to take away from that, but the team overall was better. Yeah. Like, Jágr was up here, and then literally everybody else was like down in the abyss somewhere. Like, it was, the gap was so bad that I think that just kind of highlights how incredible of a year Jágr had.
Yeah, that 05-06 season, that Rangers team was not particularly good. They did make the playoffs. They got swept by the Devils, if I remember correctly. And real quick, yeah, Jágr had 123. The next closest was 80. So a 40-point swing from next guy to next. The only argument I think for Panarin is that he elevated both Trocheck and Lafreniere to career best years. Obviously, Jágr did the same thing with Michael Nylander to some degree. But those are the 2 best Rangers forward seasons post-lockout. And it's not particularly close. There's not another one that comes to mind. I mean, you could maybe make an argument for the first year Panarin was on the team, where he finished 3rd in Hart Trophy voting, but those are easily the 2 best seasons by far, at least in terms of counting stats.
Yeah, that's a, you know, again, like, Rangers fans and the Rangers in general have this, you know, kind of attitude of, oh, we have the best players all of the time, and you play for the Rangers because we're the Rangers, and then you go through their history and like, well, okay, we have Panarin, you have Yager 20 years ago. Okay, what was the gap in between? What happened there? And you kind of look and you go, wait, like what's maybe the best players don't necessarily play here. I don't know.
Okay. Who makes the biggest difference if they pan out? Lias Andersson, Kaapo Kakko, or Vitaly Kravtsov? If those guys turn into what they're supposed to, which one makes the biggest difference for the Rangers? You could take that in terms of the last few years, right now, going forward, but who would have made the biggest difference if they worked out?
I would have to think it's Kravtsov because his offensive ceiling was supposed to be really high. And as a winger, he would have slotted into the top 6. And if he panned out, that would have filled the hole the Rangers still haven't filled. Like they're still looking for another winger to fill out with Zibanejad and Miller, and Kreider's not here anymore. They didn't fill that slot either. So if Kravtsov actually panned out and was a good player, he would have filled a very needed hole in that top 6 wing spot.
Yeah, I'm inclined to agree. I think Lias Andersson's ceiling is kind of like a Philip Deneau type, where like very useful two-way center, but 40, 50 points and elite defense only matters to a certain degree. I think Kakko turning into basically a slightly better version of Nichushkin on Colorado would have been very helpful. I think you could make a similar argument for what you just said about Kravtsov to Kakko in that respect of if he works out a little bit better and he has a little bit more offense to his game, him and that Zibanejad Kreider spot on the right, very different world. Maybe you're not as inclined to go into the bargain bin trying to find, your Jack Roslovics, your Frank Vetranos, etc. I do think that's really one of your biggest swings here over the last few years is that for all of the guys they drafted in the first round, the only ones they have left are Lafreniere and Schneider. And, neither of those guys is really a blue chip slam dunk impact player. Like I think Lafreniere is probably a top 6 forward, but I'm not really that convinced. And I think Schneider at best is probably a second pair guy on a bad team. But when you have, 10 first round picks in a 3-year window and you come away with a middle 6 forward and a third pair defenseman, you just don't have a whole lot to show for that. Like you sucked for 3 years. You traded away all your good players to get more draft picks, and you really don't have a whole lot to show for it.
It's very interesting that the Rangers continue to not know how to draft / develop first round talent, but they can they can stash away a 4th round, like they can find a diamond in the rough, a rough 4th round pick, and then they develop into a star. Like it's very impressive, but also very baffling at the exact same time.
Yeah, I agree with you here. Okay, biggest draft mulligan. So this is 3 questions. We'll do them one at a time, all under the one big question. So instead of Lias Andersson, Robert Thomas, Jason Robertson, Nick Suzuki, or Marty Necas? I feel like it's Robert Thomas, but that's because the Rangers have never had a star.
I like Robert Thomas a lot. I think you really couldn't go wrong. I think the first 3 names are the best. I think it's really difficult to answer that because you don't know how they would develop here as opposed to where they developed. I mean, Jason Robertson's a superstar. And I think his ceiling is the highest of all those players. I mean, Nick Suzuki also, before any Montreal fans bombard the comments, I love Nick Suzuki, okay? Don't come after me. Please don't send me, threats. I love Nick Suzuki. I do. I think he's also going to be, if not already, a superstar in this league. So I think it's a difficult question to ask. I mean, you really couldn't go wrong with any of those guys. I would probably take Jason Robertson just because I would want him on my team right now. I would love to find a way to get him on my team right now. So Robert Thomas would have been great. Nick Suzuki obviously would have been great. Even Necas for all his, I think his game is a little more faultier than the other 3 that you mentioned, but
it's faultier or
it is now. And then so you really couldn't get wrong with any of those. But I would like Jason Robertson, please and thank you.
Instead of Vitaly Kravtsov, Evan Bouchard, Noah Dobson, Joel Farabee, or Kirill Marchenko?
It's got to be Evan Bouchard. I mean, it's got to be. You pair him with somebody that can hold it down defensively, and then that is going to be. I mean, it's can you imagine Adam Fox and Evan Bouchard as a pair? Or you have Adam Fox as your number 1, then you have Evan Bouchard playing top 4. Dog. I mean, like that's a blue line and a half. Can you even with Bouchard's defensive faults, which he has plenty of, his offensive game is the stuff of a legend, especially in the playoffs. if you're not taking Evan Bouchard here, I think you are incorrect.
I would agree with you. Very weak draft 2018. Very weak draft when you go and look at it, just based on how things have turned out. And kind of an outlier, but then again, you think about how good the draft classes in 15, 16, and 17 were. So, kind of law of averages evening out. And this is a brief aside, but it's kind of unprecedented to have players of McKinnon, McDavid, Matthews enter the league in 3 consecutive seasons. Those are all like once in every 10-year caliber players. So that kind of I do think that has warped all of our perceptions of the draft to some degree, that you had so many, and those are just the first overall picks. That doesn't get to the Nylanders, the Marners, the Eichels, all of those guys coming into the league at the same time and all kind of popping off right at the start of their careers. So very weird in that respect. And then 2019, instead of Kakko, Matt Boldy, Cole Caulfield, Dylan Cousins, Trevor Zegras, or Mo Seider. I think you can make a strong argument for Caulfield or Boldy. I think both of those guys are really good hockey players. I think Caulfield probably can play his way onto the Olympic team if he has a good first 3 months of the season to start the year coming up. But I think if you get a little bit more high upside offense as opposed to the NHL ready guy that Kakko was perceived to be, I think you probably still have one of those guys on the team.
Yeah, definitely. I definitely would agree. I mean, Matt Boldy's a terrific player. Cole Caulfield is probably going to be an Olympian, if I had to guess, as of right now. Yeah, give me Cole Caulfield. I think even if with his stature that a lot of Rangers fans on like Facebook would not be happy with because he's not 6'4", he's incredible. He's like on both ends of the ice, he's really turning into somebody special. And again, he's a winger, if I'm not mistaken. So he's another player that would really, really help this top 6 out by having a top line winger that could produce not only for themselves but for their teammates, make everybody else better. Cole Caulfield is one of those players for sure. Him in a Rangers jersey, oh man, that would have been sick.
Question number 5. Do you think this was Chris Drury's long-term plan? Because if you'll recall, he interviewed for both the Florida Panthers, which is a very funny thought, what the Chris Drury Florida Panthers would look like right now, and the Pittsburgh Penguins jobs before the ones that went to Ron Hextall.
What if Drury went to the Panthers and then Bill Zito went to the Rangers?
The Rangers would have never hired Bill Zito.
I'm not saying they would have or they wouldn't have. I'm just saying as a thought experiment, it'd be interesting. Because you think about it too, like how much would Bill Zito like? He has carte blanche in Florida to do what he wants. Would he have had that here? I don't know the answer to that. And how would that have changed his decision making? That's another layer to that too.
Yeah, I mean, because Drury had the relationship with Glenn Sather, and Glenn Sather up until last year was kind of the buffer, if you will, somebody who can effectively serve as the Dolan whisperer to kind of be an intermediary and kind of keep him at bay, which was something that really was valuable during that transition period that Jeff Gorton and John Davidson were undergoing, where they kind of needed to sell James Dolan, who's not the most patient person, on, hey, it's going to take a while for us to rebuild this thing. But I asked this question because I sit here now and there hasn't really been a coherent idea. I have another question further down the list, like what are the Rangers trying to be good at? And I don't know. Like, I fundamentally don't know what Chris Drury's vision for a good hockey team is. And he's 5 years into this now. Like, he's had 5 off seasons to make decisions as far as coaching, players, trades, free agency. And I still don't really know what like his plan is here beyond just accumulating good players and hoping they fit together.
This couldn't have been the plan down the line for Chris Drury because you can see how 1 foot in, 1 foot out this roster is. You don't have a 5-year plan ending with, okay, we're going to have a team that could, if everything goes well, make it to the Cup final or bottom out. Like that's a wild blueprint to write up. So there's things along the way that have changed the trajectory of what he wanted this team to look like, clearly. And we sit here 5 years later thinking like, okay, well, there's some aspects of maybe a cup team here. And then there's other aspects that are like, okay, well, these guys have played 4 minutes in the league. Like how does that factor into the idea of a cup team?
Yeah, I definitely agree with you there. I think we're pretty uniform in the idea that they're not a cup team. Okay, who will have more points this upcoming season, Capo Kakko or Gabriel Perreault?
If Perreault plays, he should have more. I think if Perreault plays, he should have. But it very much depends on, not just games played, but what kind of minutes he plays. If he plays 9 minutes a game with Adam Edstrom, I don't think that's going to happen. But if he gets, 15, 16 minutes a game playing with Panarin or even Trocheck or somebody like that, I would have to think, given how high his offensive ceiling is, he's going to get more points because Capo Kakko, that's not his game. He's more of a defensive forward, and he can contribute offensively, and he's shown to be able to do that in spurts. But if Gabriel Perreault starts this, I think like Gabriel Perreault could have a hot streak to like start the season. Like there could be an NHL.com article like 10 games in, like, oh, Gabriel Perreault, like rookie of the year, he's got 8 points in 10 games. Like I can see that happening with Perreault. With Kakko, I don't know if he's capable of having those 8 points in 10 games type of run.
I only ask because I think Kakko is a safe bet for 35 to 40 points. And I feel like if Perreault is either not in the lineup that consistently or he's only playing 13, 14 minutes per night, I think that ends up being pretty close.
I would agree. I mean, again, if Perreault like doesn't really see consistent ice time, then it's definitely going to be Kakko, obviously. But Perreault has the ability to surpass Kakko if chips fall where they need to.
Okay, next up. Will Alexis Lafreniere's career high in points come as a New York Ranger?
Wow, that's a difficult question. I think this season will tell you a lot about Lafreniere's trajectory in the NHL. I think if he reverts back to his really good year a couple of years ago, then by all accounts, the answer should be a yes. If he plays a lot like he did last season, the answer is going to be no. Because at a certain point, the Rangers understand, they drafted him first overall, and this is a guy that continues to not be that high end talent that that everyone was saying that he would be. And I don't know how married they are to him. So I think the answer to this lies in how he plays this upcoming season.
Okay. I think it's a reasonable bet that if he ends up getting moved eventually, he could play a bigger role and get more than 57 points in a season. I mean, his career high in minutes per game, 17, 16. I feel like on a lower quality team, on a team that needs him to be good. And I think that's something that you just said. I think the Rangers need him to be good now. I think they are kind of inclined to give him more runway to figure it out, if you will, than say they might have a year or two ago. And that was something we were pretty consistent about over the last 2 or 3 years. Was the day would come where you would need Kakko or Lafreniere or Schneider or K'Andre Miller to play important roles on a team, and they just didn't have the experience. And the Rangers would do that. Well, they don't have any experience, like how it is trying to get an entry-level job now. Well, you need 3 to 5 years for this entry-level job. Well, how am I supposed to get experience if no one will hire me? That's kind of been what what Lafreniere, Kakko, Miller, Schneider, etc. were getting. Okay. Was Mika Zibanejad's decline inevitable?
Everybody's decline is inevitable. I don't think it would have. I think the sudden, like the drastic drop is a little surprising, but I mean, inevitable. Time waits for no man. I mean, this happens to everybody at a certain point. I wish it didn't happen this early for Zibanejad. I think, if he would have hung on for at least until now. Now it would have made a little bit more sense to see that production kind of fall off. But I mean, I don't know if inevitable is the right answer just because he kind of just fell off a little too early for the money that he's getting paid. And for all of the, the smoke about wanting to move him and then the walking it back and then all of these articles about his wife loving it in New York, which we've heard before with Jacob Trouba, by the way. Which is great and all. Like you signed the contract, you've earned the right to be here, and you've earned the right to say no to moving on. Okay, well then play your contract then. If you love your contract so much, and that's totally fine, get your bag, bro. You gotta play to it Because if you don't play to it, this is what happens. All of the noise that you're hearing is because you're not playing your contract.
Does the Rangers having Igor Shesterkin follow up Henrik Lundqvist nuke the perception of Igor Shesterkin? Because I inevitably see anytime Shesterkin has a bad game, people say Lundqvist never had games like this. Lundqvist played 15 years in the NHL. Of course he had bad games. Everybody has bad games in the NHL. Connor McDavid has bad games. This is an 82-game regular season and as long as a 2.5-month postseason. Every great player will have inevitable
people
bad
that
games.
Say Lundqvist didn't have bad games are first of all completely full of it, because if you recall, back when Cam Talbot played really well during Lundqvist's injury, there were genuine fans saying, oh, the Rangers should trade Lundqvist because Cam Talbot is better. Okay, like Henrik Lundqvist is the best Ranger goalie of all time, and you can debate the wall if you want. Like he is unequivocally the best Rangers goaltender in the history of the franchise. And there were people, like real fans at that period of time, and also throughout his career, that were low on him, that wanted him traded, that wanted him gone, that thought he was overpaid, overrated, what have you. So it's very interesting now that the revisionist history people have come out, and it's probably a lot of those same people, honestly, that are like, oh, well, Lundqvist never had a bad game. Like it's just the cycle repeating itself over and over. Like it's tiring. I do think that just like, it's a great question. I think Shesterkin coming immediately after Lundqvist and them kind of, intertwining for what was it, like a year and some change or whatever it was, definitely like the torch being passed, in a lot of ways was a good thing. But because the Rangers have had great goaltending for the vast majority of the franchise's existence, it's, I think fans kind of lose sight of, oh my God, these are really good players. Whereas like if just lost my connection for a second. There was a gap. Like if Lundqvist retired and then there was like 3 years or 4 years of really mediocre goaltending, and then Shesterkin came out of the woodworks and was great, everybody would be like, "Oh my God, this is incredible! Like he's amazing." But because the timeline was fluid and continual, there's not as much of that, which I guess hurts Shesterkin. But hey, guys, we went from one great goalie to another. I don't think you can complain.
It's very much, goalie opinion is very much like the temperature phenomena we see in politics, where people campaign on something and then they implement it and then they go, I don't really like this. And then the inverse of that, where it's like they don't do something. I don't really like that you're not doing something. So public opinion is very fluid and something that's not as direct as it seems. You don't necessarily get rewarded for doing what you're supposed to do at times. The expectation, like we talked about a lot last year, over the course of last year, a lot of people saying, well, Shesterkin and Fox can't be that good. The team is terrible, as if those guys were actively making the team bad, as opposed to being two of the only bright spots on what was a miserable hockey team. Next up, that I alluded to this before. What are the Rangers trying to be good at? What is the Rangers' idea of a good hockey team? I have
no idea. And that's kind of the worst possible answer that anybody can give about a team, because you take a look at teams that have won or at least gotten close, right? Like, the Panthers are incredibly deep offensively. Their blue line, while not the best, they have buy-ins from all of their forwards to help out the blue line, which kind of, lessens the burden on some of the blue liners. And, the goaltending's been there, and they're just a well-oiled machine that play for each other and will just dominate you the whole game and tire you out. So by the end of it, you're exhausted and they're still skating circles around you. That's a team identity that has won back-to-back Stanley Cups. You take a look at even a team like Edmonton that made it to the Cup final 2 years in a row, right? They relied on a lot of, of course, their top-end players like McDavid and Draisaitl and Bouchard, but also they got some depth scoring this year. I mean, they were a team that could really do damage to you at any point of the game, and they really relied on their offensive defensemen to carry, the first pass to really stretch that offense. And that worked. They got to the Cup final. The Rangers, strengths are, and then there's like crickets. I don't have a soundboard, so I can't put crickets there. But like their strengths are their goaltending. Yeah. Adam Fox is good at hockey. Panarin's good at hockey. Yeah. Like what is their team identity? Do you know? I don't know. Do other NHL teams know? I think they know that the Rangers don't have one, or whatever it is kind of up in the air, and teams take advantage of that. So what are they trying to be? It beats me.
I think that tells you a lot. I think, like I said before, the Rangers acquire guys, and they don't really think about the fit. They don't really think about the fit unless it's to justify guys who aren't good. If it's guys who aren't good, then, they do this. They bring intensity. They bring energy. That they have a direct answer for because they know they need to justify guys who can't actually play. Number 11, what season in the last 15 years was the Rangers' best chance to win the Stanley Cup? The candidates are 2014, 2012, 2015, 2022, and 2024.
I think it's got to be 2014 when they went to the final. And I say this because like they lost in 5, but I think like 4 of those games went to overtime. Like
I want to say 3 of the 5 went to overtime. 2 of the 3 went to double overtime, if I remember correctly.
Like the cup was there. I mean, you really couldn't get closer, and you could. There's definitely an argument for other years, 100%. But looking back at that series, you go, okay, well, if the Rangers just get a little luckier in some regards, they make one extra better pass, or like the puck bounces a little bit to the left instead of a little bit to the right, they win the cup. And I think that's got to be the closest, because you can hypothetically look at if they beat the Lightning in 2015, then they could have played this team, and then they could have but off of what actually went down, that series against LA was so close. And if they just have a little bit, if they just play 5% better and they get 5% better puck luck, they win the Stanley Cup. And yeah, it still hurts me to say that.
Yeah, I think for me, I would probably go. And this is kind of a contrarian take. I feel like it's 2012, because if they beat the Devils, that Kings team was an 8 seed, and I know Jonathan Quick won the Conn Smythe for being the best player in the playoffs that year. That Kings team hadn't really blossomed yet, and that Rangers team, I would argue, was just as talented. I think 2015, if they're healthy, I think they would have had a pretty good chance against the Blackhawks, but that Blackhawks team was definitely more talented on paper. I think last year they probably could have beaten Edmonton, but at the same time, the Oilers were running a 96% penalty kill, and the Rangers, without a power play, would have had a really hard time scoring enough to win last year. I don't think they would have been able to beat Colorado in 2022. I think that one's definitely out, but I think 12, 14, 15, and 24 all have varying degrees of arguments. I think in order, I would say most likely, I'd agree with you, 14 the most. I would say 12. I would say 24. And then I would say 15. I think that Blackhawks team was really good, and I don't think they would have had the horses to hang with the Blackhawks towards the end of that group's prime. But they've been close, and that's really what makes it all the more frustrating.
And it hurts more, when you're a team, when you're a fan of a team like the Sabres, where your frustrations are within management, and also, hey, this team hasn't made the playoffs in almost 20 years now. There's a lot of pain in that, but the pain hits way harder when you get so close multiple times and you just keep falling short. Just ask San Jose fans. They feel the same way.
Yeah. San Jose was right there too. That's the only team that won more playoff games than the Rangers.
Yep. Neither team. I mean, both teams have won a million playoff games. Okay. Neither team has a cup to show for it.
What is the next award a Ranger will win? I can include Coach of the Year in there as well, if you'd like.
I think realistically, Shesterkin for the Vezina seems the most within reach. Maybe, because Hellebuck had one of the best seasons in NHL history last season. I mean, my man's, couldn't, you shoot 9 pucks at him at the same time, he's stopping probably all 9 of them. Like he was that good in the regular season, and then come the playoffs, it kind of faltered. But that's neither here nor there. Like I think Shesterkin could definitely, like he's won it before, he could do it again. I don't know how anyone on the Rangers currently wins. The Rocket Richard, even like Adam Fox could win the Norris if the Rangers have a really good season. Like that could also be in the cards, but I think realistically speaking, I think Shesterkin's got the best chance of doing it.
I would agree with you. I think it has to be Fox or Shesterkin. I think you missed your best chance for a Panarin Hart Trophy already. I think Coach of the Year is really unlikely based on where they're at right now, though I suppose it could be 4 or 5 years.
If the Rangers win the President's Trophy again, then Mike Sullivan will win. Like that's the caveat, because again,
yes.
You take a look at, okay, well the Rangers didn't make the playoffs because they were a dumpster fire last season. So Mike Sullivan comes in, he puts the fire out, and his system turns the Rangers back into a perennial cup contender. That I can see for sure. But short of that, yeah, it's that those two are probably the more likely.
Yeah, I don't think Calder's in the mix. I don't think Perreault will have enough counting stats to be in the conversation there. I don't think you'll see a Selke. I don't think you'll see a Lady Bing anytime soon. So I think Shesterkin being as good as he is probably the most likely. Okay, who will make the championship round of their respective sport first? The Knicks or the Rangers?
I think on paper it's got to be the Knicks, just because they were really close last season. They kind of fell apart in some of those games. They only should have beat Indiana. I was at game 1 where the Knicks had a bajillion point lead and blew it. I was there. I saw it. It was just as miserable live as it was probably watching it on TV. But now Mike, I like Mike Brown a lot. I think I like Mike Brown a lot more than most Knicks fans do, and I think he could be really good. I think there's a lot more questions with the Rangers than there are with the Knicks right now. At least the roster is what it is. They have a lot of high-end talent. Yeah, there's a coaching question, but I think in terms of what have you done for me lately, the Knicks have shown that even with a lot of questions about their head coach, they got to the conference finals. Whereas the Rangers missed the playoffs with a team that was supposed to at least make it to like the second round of the playoffs. And now you have a new head coach with the same roster. Have fun. A lot more questions there.
So I think the argument for the Knicks, the East is a lot more open in basketball.
Not going to be a great team. The Pacers aren't going to be a great team.
Indiana as well.
You got the Cavs.
It's really just Cleveland.
Yeah.
And maybe Orlando.
If they say
and
healthy,
maybe Orlando.
Like the East is way more wide open. The likelihood of the Knicks making it to the final as currently constructed, I would think is a lot higher than the Rangers right now.
Agreed, especially because the Rangers know even if you do have a great year, you still got to get through Florida, which as nobody's been able to do for 2 years now. Hell, you could, other than Vegas, no one's been able to do it for 3 years. So I think you're really talking about a scary proposition there. Okay. Which team has the best long-term future of the following? The Rangers, Islanders, Devils, Flyers, Penguins, Jackets, Capitals, and Hurricanes. Of the Metro Division teams, which one has the best?
It's a difficult question for me because I don't know prospects that well, and I'm not here to pretend to know them. So
I don't think any of these teams particularly have a lot of prospects. That's the thing. Like the Islanders drafted a bunch of guys. The Penguins drafted a couple of guys, but I think that's a lot more of a long-term proposition for those teams because they're kind of, those are multi-year situations there.
Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
I think I was going to say, I think Columbus is probably the most straightforward projection of like the guys they have just continue to keep getting better and they supplement that. I think Washington is at the end of their window of contention. I think Carolina is going to be pretty good, but I don't know about long-term trajectory. The Flyers, I am cautiously interested is the way I would describe them. The Devils, I think they're ready to go right now, so I don't necessarily know about long-term. I think the Rangers are kind of in the same boat as Washington where their window is closing and the long-term future becomes a lot more murky. I think this is a very wide open division going forward, which is both good and bad.
It's difficult. I would say I think Carolina probably edge is number one over Columbus for me, but Columbus has a very good argument as well. I think Carolina really just has this machine of we are going to trot out good teams no matter what. Like they find guys, like they just gave Jackson Blake a long-term contract, and he's been, for his rookie warts and all that, he's been really good for them, and he's only going to continue to get better. So I like the Hurricanes a lot. I think Columbus is going to be a dangerous team. I think a lot of fans are sleeping on Columbus. I don't know, they really
need a goalie.
really
That's
need
the
a
one
goalie.
thing.
And this is going to be tough, but like Columbus has a track record of not really caring about this either. It'd be interesting if the NHL clears Carter Hart if Columbus goes after him. I know Edmonton's been rumored, linked to him for a long time. There's my thoughts on that whole situation aside. Columbus has with the whole Mike Babcock thing, right? Like they've shown that they don't particularly care about that kind of stuff, that they can, they will go after whoever they want to. So Carter Hart could be on their radar if he ever gets cleared. But they really need a goalie. Like that's kind of their biggest issue right now.
Speaking of Carter Hart, as an aside, I think people are forgetting that he hasn't played professional hockey in a while. Like you look at how bad Deshaun Watson was at football after not playing professional football for 2 years. I think not playing professional hockey for 2 years and assuming he's going to be able to get back in to NHL competition and be even decent, I think that's a really tall order proposition. I think if you're really trying to get him back in the league, I think if you're him, you're going to Europe. I think you're starting from scratch and just trying to play professional hockey again, because 2 years is so long in sports. It is such a long time to be away from the game. Like other than Tom Brady, I don't think I would take the odds on anybody coming back from a 2-year layoff and being effective again. And that's because that's the greatest guy. I mean, Jordan did it, obviously, coming back to play for the Wizards. But like, unless you're that caliber of player, 2 years of a layoff is.
There's an argument to be made that somebody, like if in the event that the NHL clears Carter Hart, that he signs a 1-year deal and starts the year in the AHL and just plays his way into being, the goalie that insert team here wants him to be. And like that, if he doesn't want to go, because I don't think he goes to Europe just because there's 20 teams are going to be calling him. It'd probably be better for his maybe long-term playing career if he went to Europe and kind of hit the reset button. And again, like off ice stuff, totally aside, we're talking about strictly like the on ice performance right now. I think he's going to get.
He also wasn't good his last year in Philadelphia, which is another point people seem to be forgetting.
That highlights just how bad the goalie market is right now. That it's atrocious. Where the top name is somebody that didn't play. Well, I also think part of the reason he didn't play well in Philly that last season was because of everything going on. But, who knows for sure. But strictly on ice play, I think Carter Hart probably will end up signing a deal if he gets cleared and will just play in the AHL until he figures it out.
Yeah, that's probably the hockey decision to make there. Okay, you can pick one bottom six forward or third pair defenseman from another team to add to the Rangers. Who do you want and why?
That's a really good question. Can I have a second to open up Daily Faceoff here and take a look at what projected lines some teams have here? Because, some... line combos. Let's even take a look at somebody like Florida, right? For example, I mean,
give me Lundell. He's a third liner. That counts.
Anton Lundell's a third
give me
liner.
Brad
Marchand is technically a third liner. I'll take either one of those guys 100%. Like I'll even take Losterainen. Like he could be a really good bottom six player for the Rangers. Like any of those guys. And that's the thing too, when you look at a cup winning team like the Panthers, I understand, Brad Marchand took a discount, right? Like, all these guys are taking less money to play there. Sure. But, still you take a look at these guys and you take a look at the third line and you go, okay, like compare that third line to what the Rangers have. And you quickly realize, oh wait, that third line is a lot better. Like, give me any three of those guys for sure.
I think you could also make an argument for William Karlsson, who's going to be the third line center for the Golden Knights next year. I think having a Wild Bill type would be very helpful. We don't need more third pair defensemen. The Rangers already have 4. We do not. They have 5. 4 or 5. Yeah. Arguably,
they have
5.
a lot of bottom pair defensemen. I mean, I would argue that I would trade some of them in order to get somebody that can actually play bottom, like effective bottom 6 minutes. I would do that, but Rangers, most of their roster right now on the blue line is third pair guys, so I'm not too interested.
If you could change one rule in the NHL, what would it be?
Stupid trapezoid. Just get rid. It's so it's so stupid. The trapezoid is the dumbest. It's one of the dumbest rules in sports. Get rid of it. I know they wanted to. They implemented it for Marty Brodeur because he was too good at playing the puck. Counterpoint: if he get good, skill issue. Get other goalies to get better at it.
Literally,
that's it.
Okay. Next year, who will lead the New York Rangers in points? Not this upcoming season, the following season, because the implication Panarin contract expiring, it might be someone else. Who will it be and why?
I do think he'll re-sign. I don't know with what length or what the term is. I would think it would be probably cheaper, whether he signs here or not. I do think that this was the most lucrative contract of his career. I do think he's going to be cheaper and, again, in any situation that he's in after this following season. I do think he stays. I do think he likes it here. I don't know, obviously he had that off-ice incident. I don't know if that changes anything with how the Rangers view him, how he views their organization. I know he and Shesterkin are friends, so I don't know how that would go, but I do think there's a pretty reasonable chance he comes back. And if he comes back, it's easily Panarin. If not, JT Miller.
Yeah, JT Miller is going to be my pick. I think there's a reasonable chance they try and really reconfigure the team going forward. And unless Panarin takes a real steep discount, kind of reminiscent to what Zararis did in Toronto, I think there's a strong argument the Rangers might try and find a different way to allocate that money to build a little bit more.
Yeah, why pay
lineup.
One player $10 million
question.
when you can pay 12 players $10 million and see how it goes? Yeah.
Yeah, the Toronto plan. Will Borgen finish his contract as a Ranger? No. Do you think that is a Drury decision or whoever replaces Chris Drury?
I definitely he's signed for 5 years and he's a okay player. I think whoever replaces Drury takes a look at Will Borgen's contract and says, get that out of here immediately.
Who lasts longer in the organization, Mika Zibanejad or Chris Drury?
Zibanejad, just because he can't be moved until 2030. Chris Drury can be fired at any time. That's it.
I mean, there's a non-zero chance we end up with like a decade reign of horror where Drury's the GM through 2030.
I don't think that happens.
It's not implausible. I really don't think that happens. I mean, Glenn Sather got to be the GM for 15 years, and they were god awful for the first 5 of those 15 years. So I wouldn't totally
but he
rule
didn't
it
have
out,
the
is what I'm
roller
saying.
coaster ride that Drury's been on. So I do think that if let's say the season doesn't go well, I think he's out the door.
I mean, that's what logic would tell you, but then again, logic doesn't always reign supreme. Okay, this is the last question. This is question number 20. Who wins a playoff series first? The Rangers, the Devils, the Senators, the Leafs, the Red Wings, or the Canadiens?
I kind of this is going to be kind of a wild answer. I think the Canadiens have a good shot. Like they're really on the come up. Their young talent is becoming, not only just day-to-day NHLers, but really becoming players that can be really dangerous whenever they're on the ice. They have a lot of good talent, even with their goaltending, maybe question marks a little bit. Like Montembeault has shown flashes of being really good. Jacob Dobesh also shown flashes of being really good in spurts. I think they can really surprise people. I think Montreal is another team that people are really sleeping on just because they've been bad for so long and they went on that run towards the end of the season and kind of fell off. But Montreal, I think, can be really, could be a scary team. And they could, like, let's say, a good team matches up against Montreal in the first round, and they go, oh, well, these are just a bunch of young guys. Oh, we can take them easy. Like, have that kind of mentality. And I can see Montreal winning that series for sure.
Yeah. So talking it out real quick, the Devils are probably the most talented team on this list, but until they play a team that's softer than them, they're also probably not going to be able to get through. Like, that's the other caveat there. If they play like the Rangers, Washington, Columbus, maybe, I don't know, Montreal or Ottawa or Toronto, I could see a world where the Devils could beat them. I don't think the Devils can beat a Florida. I don't think they can beat a Tampa Bay. So I think the Devils are probably the most locked.
By the way, how hilarious would the articles be and like the storyline would be if the Rangers and Canadiens met in the first round of the playoffs and Montreal won?
Yeah, it would. It really would. Ottawa, they made the playoffs last year. They took a step. Finally getting a serious goalie and Ullmark in there is nice. Their young pieces like Stützle and Jake Sanderson are very enticing. I can see a world where Ottawa gets back to the playoffs. I think they're matchup dependent. Toronto, their offseason's been bad. Just flat out. They lost a 110-point player, and they replaced him with a bunch of 30-point guys. And yes, they got to keep John Tavares at a steep discount, but I really don't see the path there to that team winning a cup with a bunch of fourth liners. I think they've done a really weird job. Buffalo's got to make the playoffs. Detroit has to make the playoffs. And then Montreal, I think I see the vision most clearly for Montreal. I think it would depend on the matchup. I think if they can get into one of the three division spots as opposed to one of the wild cards, I think they'll have a reasonable chance of making it happen, but they got to get there because I think they could beat Toronto. I think they could probably give Tampa Bay a real fight. I don't think they can beat Florida. I don't think anyone can beat Florida. So I think the Rangers are probably somewhere in the middle of this group where if they get in, it would really
I mean, I'd like if they play the Caps again, I think Montreal wins that series, right? Yeah. It's genuinely it is very matchup dependent for Montreal. Like, obviously, if they play a team like Florida, then that probably won't end up in a win for them. But you play a team that is not as fast as you, and a team, Montreal doesn't have anything to lose. Like they will be the underdog in every series that they play. They make the playoffs, and the team that they are playing, whoever it is, will be the favorite. Montreal will have no pressure, a team with young guys who got a sniff of the playoffs last season, and pretty much a team of young guys with something to prove. They want to go out there and show the rest of the NHL, oh, hey, by the way, take us seriously or else. And I can definitely see a team, a team taking Montreal lightly, and Montreal, I don't want to say steamrolling them, but winning the series in like 5 or 6.
All right, that'll do it for this week's edition of Liberty Blue. That was 20 New York Rangers and NHL at large questions. Andrew and I will talk to you guys next week. Be sure to subscribe to the show wherever you get your podcasts or over on YouTube. Later. We'll see you guys soon.